Tonight was round one of the NFL draft for 2025, and if one thing is true, it means Miami Dolphins fans like myself are complaining. I want to tell you why the Dolphins' first round pick may not be quite as bad as you think based on some of the research that I did here tonight. Hi, everybody. This is MetropoliFins. We are YouTube's smallest New York Mets and Miami Dolphins channel. I am Craig and want to invite you to subscribe to this channel for updates on both New York Mets baseball and Miami Dolphins football. Kenneth Grant Jr. was selected by the Miami Dolphins here tonight. He's a defensive tackle out of Michigan. And I came up with 5 reasons while we were streaming and researching because I didn't know anything about him. I'm not coming to you saying, oh, I knew exactly who the Dolphins should pick. I'm just kind of a fan just like you. But here are 5 reasons why I think he's not quite as bad as what everything on social media is making him out to be. First of all, he was coached by Harbaugh. Yes, I understand not all of you are Harbaugh fans, but Harbaugh knows what the NFL takes, and he coached players in a way to prepare them for the NFL. And he, Kenneth Grant, got the opportunity to be coached by Harbaugh while Harbaugh was still at Michigan. And I think that is a huge thing that is a part of his development. When he came out of high school, he was only a 4-star recruit, not a 5-star recruit. And yet here he is drafted in the first round. Now, you might think he was overdrafted or slotted a little bit too high, but by far, this was not the only pick that was somewhere in the 40s or 50s, according to certain people's draft boards, that went in the first round. It happened with a lot of players, and other players that were slotted to go in the first round didn't get drafted in the first round. It happens every single year. It just so happened that this was a year where maybe the Dolphins picked higher than where people were expecting Kenneth Grant to go. However, he has been exceeding expectations every step of the way. He came out as a 4-star recruit. He came out as like the 9th best defensive tackle, and now he's being drafted in this draft class as one of the top 5 defensive tackles. So he is an overachiever. He has been coached by Harbaugh. Second thing is this: naturally, he's a champion. He is a winner. He is part of the Michigan Wolverines national championship roster. And he wasn't just sitting on as a bench player. He started in multiple games that season and padded his stats really well throughout the season. In fact, it was probably the best season of his college career was his sophomore season on that Michigan roster on the national championship team. Next thing is this: he's a run stopper. And I know we can argue all day and night about what the biggest hole is on this Dolphins defense, or even broader on this Dolphins roster. But if you saw the same things I saw last year, the Dolphins could not stop the run. Okay, we have lots of problems. I'm not going to argue or disagree with you there. But stopping the run was a major problem. And there certainly seems to be value to jumping to get the piece that you think is going to be the hardest piece to replace otherwise. Now, there are certainly times, and in general, I'm in favor of going with the best available player, and I don't know if that matches this particular thing. However, he does still fit a need that we desperately have on this team, which is run stopping. The next thing is this: he is a cold weather player. And if you're like me, you get frustrated with how this team doesn't seem to show up in cold weather games, whether it be Buffalo or Kansas City or Green Bay or any of the places that we inevitably have to go in November, December, or the playoffs. And here's the truth. The truth is, this is not just because we're the Dolphins and we play in warm weather. The San Francisco 49ers play in warm weather and have no problem going into Green Bay. It's a roster construction problem. And maybe there's a little bit of a nod to Stephen Ross as a Michigan alum here. But in the broader sense of the word, I like that we're bringing in players from cold weather environments who will not be absolutely shocked at, oh my goodness, I'm playing in a cold weather game. I don't know how to play football anymore. That has been part of our downfall in recent years, is just the inability to win any sort of road game in November, December, or beyond, where the temperature is below, say, 50 degrees, let alone 40 or 30 degrees. So this is a cold weather guy, and I hope that maybe this is a little bit of a change in our approach of bringing in guys who are tough. And I really thought right before we made the pick, I was like, oh, are we going to pick another SEC guy? And again, nothing against the SEC, but we need to have guys who who can consistently be able to go out there in cold weather environments and do that. And we're picking a guy who not only has done that in a survival mode, but in a thriving mode, again, being that national champion. The last thing is this, is I looked at a lot of reactions, and of course, the vast majority of the Dolphins fan reactions were neutral or negative. But I saw something very different when I started trolling and going through, not trolling in that sense, but like just going through Michigan message boards. They were consistently excited and thinking that this was a good pick for the Dolphins. And I understand there is homerism, there is biases. I get that. That's part of football. That's part of the college football environment. Michigan fans sticking up for Michigan players. But there was something more to it than that. And again, not being a Michigan expert, I do have a friend who's a Michigan alum and was part of the football team back in the day. But I don't know anything really about this roster in depth other than some of these guys were part of that national championship team, which is pretty cool. But when I'm looking through and I'm seeing, it's not just pride that, we had another Michigan player drafted. It was Kenneth Grant is a good player. And I'm going to honestly trust the biases of a Michigan fan who has seen him play over Dolphins fans who really just learned about him for the most part tonight. Now, I know some of you are super fans and you had this draft all perfectly picked out and you know all about him and you have your reasons why you don't think he was worth it. Was he an overreach? Time is going to tell. But this whole idea that Mel Kiper's big board is going to be the board that these actual teams are following when it comes to draft day is just a myth. You can put your draft rankings out all you want, but you have to understand that these coaches and these teams have spent way more time with these players than even most of these commentators you see on TV. So again, is it possible an overreach? Yes, it is. I'm not here to defend the pick. I'm here to say, let's give the person a chance. Because I know in the past we've had these things where everybody wants to find all these excuses why this player isn't going to be good or he's not the right pick or it was too much of a reach or it's too much of a stretch. And I understand those things from a logistical perspective. But this checks off more than just the run stopper box. It checks off someone who has played under a professional football coach. It checks off someone who is a winner. It checks off someone who has overachieved every step of the way and exceeded expectations. It checks off the box of bringing in someone who can be tough and play in cold weather. And those fans who have followed his career and watched him the most approve of the pick. And to me, all those things considered, that's willing for me to give him a good chance. Now, if you want to complain about the front office, go for it all you want. But I want to give Kenneth Grant Jr. a chance, and I want to welcome him to Miami.